My friend's mother-in-law pointed a pork chop at us and called my friends and me terrorists. But she got a restraining order instead, and she came back home heartbroken. A good friend of mine from university was getting married. They had been a couple since their junior year of college through her 2 years in the Peace Corps and currently her return to this continent, 6 years in total. She had been to all family functions and always came back with a strange story about how she thinks her mother-in-law secretly hates her. But she, being a very quiet and sweet person, pushed those thoughts aside. Point 1. She is vegetarian and Jewish. Husband is not. She was invited to go to Christmas dinner and figured she would just eat sides. She also brought a vegetarian casserole. Mother-in-law, after knowing her for 3 years and being told by their husband a few weeks before about not to forget friend doesn't eat meat, proceeded to put meat in every dish. The friend drank water and ate her casserole the whole night while mother-in-law cried to everyone that the friend was so rude for not eating her cooking. Anyway, back to the story. A few friends and I were asked to be at the wedding. Friend has a huge family, so this would not be a small affair. Neither of them is particularly religious, but a friend said it would be nice to be married under a huppah. Think an arbor with 4 poles and covered with a white cloth and lots of flowers. The husband said he could care less and told her to rent one for the wedding. I was at the bridal shower when mother-in-law found out the pretty canopy was actually a huppah. She almost lost her poop in front of a bunch of people, but managed to compose herself and laugh angrily that if the Jews were being represented so with the Catholics. In my head, I heard a record screech, "Guys, they aren't Catholic." So after much fighting, screaming, crying, and threatening to pull money, which is funny because she contributed nothing, mother-in-law lost. The boot was firmly placed, and nothing was moving it. Huppah, yes. Catholic priest, no. Things got stupid quiet. My friend texted me the night before the wedding that she felt bad. I told her it was probably just nerves. She was getting married, and this was a big deal. Oh, how wrong I was. We all show up, get our hair and makeup done, slip into our bridesmaid dresses, and hang out, waiting for the bride to finish her hair. She commented that she hadn't seen mother-in-law all day and skipped her hair and makeup appointment. We all side-eye each other, take a few sips of wine, and hope the eerie feeling disappears. 30 minutes later, as we are helping the bride into her dress, guess who shows up? If you guessed mother-in-law, you win a cookie. Flushed from coming up the stairs in full hair and makeup and a white dress. Not ivory, not cream, full snow fucking white. The dress was clearly a wedding dress. It was even from David's bridal. Floor-length satin with a sweetheart beaded top, a bit of a train and off-white lace on the bottom. The dress was even tailored to her. This has been a long con she has orchestrated. The bride burst into tears and aunts and friends ushered mother-in-law out. We did our best to console the bride, touched up her makeup, and I made her promise that the dress would never be seen in a photo. She looked me dead in the eye and nodded. The game was on. The venue only supplied white wine and champagne for the wedding party, but I grabbed my purse and ran down into the reception area and managed to flag an attendant by the bar and bribe him with the cool $20 to give me a bottle of red early. I cracked the baby open, filled a solo cup to the brim with it, and stalked outside. After a few swigs from the bottle for courage, I went over to where everyone was getting ready to take photos. With one last hard stare at my friend, I got her nod of approval. I pulled out my phone, held it in front of my face like I was reading a text, and walked straight into mother-in-law. I poured the entire cup of red wine down the front of her dress, jumped back and gasped. The look on her face was murderous. She screamed, yelled, threatened, and promised she would sue me. People had to hold her back because she wanted to fight me. Eventually, she switched from screaming to sobbing and sank to the ground and threw a tantrum on the floor. Everyone moved back and just let her go at it and walked away to go take photos. It was surreal, as if everyone just hit their limit and noped out from around her. The 12-year-old flower girl whipped out her phone and snapped a few photos, much to our amusement. This is already super long, but I will say that mother-in-law went home and changed into a nice dark green, too small and low-cut dress. Because of this, she missed all of the photos. The wedding was beautiful. I got death glares from everyone. She told that I attacked her with wine. No fugs were given as I drank and danced with friends. Bride thanked me secretly, and 3 months later, took me to the spa for a day of pampering. But I am officially that ISIS cunt to mother-in-law, and I'll take it with pride. Update 1. It has been 2-ish years since the red wedding incident. NC has been absolute bliss for my friends since the wedding ended. This past weekend was my gal pal's birthday, and she decided why not have a brunch on Easter on her badass rooftop in the city. So I fired up my cooking skills and made my famous vegetarian, crispy, turmeric, saffron Persian rice with roasted and pomegranate seeds. What does this lovely brunch have to do with my sister from another Mister's mother-in-law she has been MC with for almost 2-ish years? I'm glad you asked, llamas, because B showed up. I'm not sure whose Facebook she stalked or what person she waterboarded, but she came from out of state and showed up at the front door of their apartment building. I will rewind just a little. A friend and I are setting up on the roof, tossing pillows on the outdoor furniture, and laying out some linens on the tables. Their apartment building is only 4 stories high, and they live on the top floor, the only apartment with roof access. Because we were not sure that people would hear the buzzer inside the apartment, we put a sign for people to ring the bell and give a shout out to the roof or text, and we would buzz them in. So I'm meandering about fluffing pillows while happily balancing my mimosa when I hear someone yelling. I figured someone came early and a friend went to lean over the root edge to see who it was. She immediately reeled back and spun to look at me. Its name redacted. She shouted as she ran for the apartment to stop the hubs from accidentally buzzing her in. I peeked over the roof and watched her for a bit, pacing, freaking out, pulling on the handle of the door. She hit the buzzer maybe 10 times and then looked up and saw me. She was angry. Flipped me off and went back to try to yank on the handle and shout something about wanting to give her baby his Easter basket. The woman seemed unhinged. She was in fact carrying one of those drugstore giant plastic green baskets filled with crap so high that it was wrapped in plastic. So I did what any sane person would do, just park myself there and sip my mimosa, watching her lose her poop and occasionally look up at me and shake her fist. A friend came back with their husband, and he peeked over to see her pacing like a damn hyena in front of the door. Since people would be arriving soon, they worried she would force her way in with others. I posted on the Facebook group a quick rundown on what was happening so people knew what they were possibly walking into. Mother-in-law then had a brilliant idea. She buzzed all of the other apartments, hoping someone might let her in while she continued to call out for her son who was hiding on the roof drinking straight out of the bottle of champagne. Someone let the bee in. She charged into the building, and at this point, friend's husband whipped out his phone and dialed 911. He said, and I quote, "My unstable mother I haven't spoken to in 2 years traveled across the country and showed up at my apartment screaming. She just broke into the building, and we are scared she is a danger to us and herself. We live XXX. I'm pretty sure by the time this I have bad knees and a thyroid problem lady made it up the stairs to the 4th floor. The cops were rolling up. She never made it inside the apartment. When the cops confronted her, she turned sickeningly sweet and begged them while she fake cried to see her baby. She tried to get the cops on her side to talk to him about going with her. Cops were having none of it and asked her if she was invited here and if she knew she was trespassing. The husband went out and told the police he wanted her to leave. This is where poop hit the fan. She lunged for her son, threw the basket at the police, and tried to drag husband down the stairs. When he pulled away, she decided just to make a run for it. One of the cops grabbed her arm as she started down the stairs, which threw her off balance, and she took the cop tumbling down a flight of stairs with her. There were plastic toys, candy, and that crinkly cellophane crap all over the hall and down the stairs. Watching her be put into handcuffs face down and all of it was fairly amusing. A friend and I sipped our mimosas from the top of the rail. Trespassing, assault of an office, and 2 more charges are pending. It was a lovely brunch though. Update 2. When we last left off, Crazy Bee mother-in-law was booked for assault on Easter Sunday after showing up from a few states away and 2 years in NC. She did not post bail and sat in jail until her court date a few days ago. A sympathetic judge ignored testimony from the son and the police officer. Her charges were reduced, and she was let go after paying a pretty hefty trespassing fee and being told she had to keep her nose clean for a year. So she then saw the error of her ways and pranced home. Yay, fucking, right. Let me set the scene. Mother's Day 2018. It was sunny and warm with a hint of coastal breeze to make the weather perfect. A friend's mother lives across the country, so they joined our friends group at an outdoor event with sunshine, beats, picnic food, and booze. We all had a wonderful time on my side of the pond. They left to head home, and a few hours later, I received a very disturbing phone call from a friend. Crazy bee mother-in-law was staking out their apartment. She rented a studio a block away and just so happened to run into them when they were coming home. She was upset that her son didn't call her for Mother's Day and wanted to let him know she officially moved here. Even though she literally owns a home in another state, she decided to rent an apartment in one of the most expensive cities in the country. A friend is disturbed, and the husband is in shock. He started paperwork on in row, and they got a ring cam just in case. I invited them to stay at my place because apparently when my friend left for work on Tuesday morning, she saw crazy bee mother-in-law sitting in the cafe across the street reading the paper. The husband has been working from home and figuring out alternative ways out of his building. He called some other cousins, aunts, and uncles, and told them what was going on. They are not shocked. She had been planning this sudden move for years. Spoke non-stop about her son and me, but never mentioned friends beyond making a face at her name. They never thought she would go through with it and said she disappeared a week before Easter / never showed up to the family dinner. The mother-in-law is stalking me, awesome. I expect 2 Homeland Security guys at my door soon enough. Friend and husband are coming over tomorrow for who knows how long. They alerted their landlord who is at least taking the matter seriously and passed out flyers to the other tenants with her name and photo saying she was banned from the building. He is also going to keep an eye on the camera footage by the main door to make sure she doesn't slip in with deliveries. He's a great guy. I'm going to send him some cookies. There you have it. I'm gearing up for guests and possibly a cash me outside moment with crazy bee mother-in-law. Update 3. Friend and husband spent a few quiet days at my house across the pond and eventually returned last Sunday. They have been meeting and going through a back exit that their landlord gave them a key to. For a little update, the row paperwork is in. The family has been called to get her ass back to bull poop land, and now we just wait. I appreciate all of the comments here, and the people who offered sound advice. My friend and her husband followed a lot of it. My juicy, hilarious, and absolutely amazing tidbit for you all actually has to do with me. God, I love this woman. So it's Ramadan, and I'm on my fasting game. Headed over the pond yesterday to a fast-breaking party called iftar, which is when we are allowed to eat after sunset. 2 other people headed to the party, and I waited on the corner down from a friend's apartment building. We chatted, showed some memes, and waited for them to come meet us. Suddenly, I feel this tap on my shoulder. When I turn around, I am met with a fried pork chop a few inches from my nose. Confusion. More confusion. Sudden recognition that red wine was standing there holding a pork chop at me. She then starts to gesture with the pork chop. You think you can just corrupt my son? This country? She pointed the pork chop at me as the 2 friends on wood started giggling behind me. And just for reference, they are 2 hijabis, kind of a slang we call young fashionable women in hijab, and I am not. I am waist-length, wild, curly hair trying to eat my head. I pointed at the pork chop and asked why she had it. She responded that she was waiting for me. There is a leak somewhere. She knew about the time of the iftar party and was walking around trying to find us with a fucking pork chop. Hijabi one asked red wine if she would eat it because she was hungry, which seemed to piss her off since she yelled that she knew we didn't eat pork. At this point, I'm dying. I had that ugly holding back laughter but not breathing face on. Friend and husband come jogging up as she's lecturing my hijabi friends on their own religion. Something is something Trump deported and God's wrath for non-believers. Husband gets between us and is yelling at red wine to leave, and we all make a hasty exit down the road. I'm walking backward watching her flail this pork chop around and point it in her son's face. And finally, I just can't hold it and laugh. My full belly absolutely cannot hold it back anymore. She points the pork chop over his shoulder at me and whines that he is hanging out with terrorists and she can protect him. Husband pulls out his phone and says he's calling the police, and like fogging smoke, she disappears in the other direction. Glorious. She was telling him to come with her back home, that her sister was coming to get them from our city of sin and terrorists. We sat at dinner, stuffed our faces, and regaled the other partygoers of red wine, the crazy lady who tried to ward us off like vampires with the pork cross. Update 4. This update is interesting. My friend's husband called me up a few days ago to sincerely apologize to me for what happened. He told me that the very next day, she showed up to his apartment and slipped in with the postmaster. He got home from work to find her sitting on his floor, a hysterical mess. Mascara running down her face, dirty, crazy hair, and smeared lipstick mess. He found out then that she hadn't actually been paying rent for a place to stay here and had instead been staying at a weekly pay motel. She was broke, homeless, and firmly believed the terrorists were after her. Without a beat, he called the police, and she was taken to lock up. He then called as many family members as he could to tell them she had a psychotic break and someone needed to pick her up. Only her sister showed up the next day and finally took her home. But she does come back in 3 months for her hearing of not keeping her goddamn nose clean. But the judge this time granted the raw glory. Praise be. We have appeased the wine gods. He has only heard snippets from family members, but she seems to be absolutely off the deep end. She is telling anyone that will listen that her trip to our city was amazing. She had such a good time. She spent so much time with her son, bonding. But the city was too big and loud and scary, so she just had to go home. And that one day soon her son apparently told her that he was going to go home too. No. They added a few more security measures and have returned to some semblance of normal. I feel awful for my friend and her husband because there is this part of me that worries that this woman will never leave them alone until she's dead or in jail. Hopefully, her sister can do a better job of keeping her in their state.